Let me ask you a question. How long does it take for a simple message to travel 2,700 kilometers today? About 1 second. You click a button, and boom, it is instantly there on the other side of the world. But what about the year 500 BC? Sending a royal letter across that massive distance usually meant one very predictable thing. Your exhausted messenger would likely die of thirst, get horribly lost in the desert, or become a quick snack for a mountain lion. Because of this, most urgent messages simply never arrived. Yet, the ancient Persian Empire somehow achieved the absolute impossible against all odds. They built a massive, highly coordinated communication network that delivered royal decrees across the known world in just 7 days. They didn't have electricity, satellites, or fiber optic cables. They had dirt, fast horses, and a brilliant sense of administrative organization. To truly understand this ancient internet, we must first look at the sheer, terrifying scale of the Achaemenid Empire. Stretching over 5.5 million square kilometers from Egypt to India, it was the largest superpower the ancient world had ever seen. It held nearly 50 million people. That was almost half of the entire human population on Earth at that specific point in time. Imagine trying to govern 20 different nations, all speaking completely different languages, without a single telephone or a functioning post office. Before the Royal Road, if a local governor decided to start a violent rebellion in a distant western province like Lydia, the terrible news would take many months to cross the harsh terrain and finally reach the capital city of Susa. By the time the king actually found out, the rebel had already minted his own coins, built a palace, and probably died of old age. This slow logistical nightmare was tearing the great empire apart. That is, until a man named Darius I took the throne. Darius I was not just a conqueror, he was a fiercely obsessive organizer. He looked at his vast, disconnected territories and saw a logistical nightmare that needed immediate fixing. To keep the empire from crumbling into chaos, he realized he needed a central nervous system. So, he ordered the construction of a mega highway, stretching all the way from Susa to Sardis in modern-day Turkey. We call it the Royal Road. A magnificent engineering marvel stretching over 2,699 kilometers. Now, building a highway today involves asphalt, heavy machinery, and years of careful planning. Darius didn't have bulldozers. He had thousands of workers, rudimentary tools, and absolute royal authority. His workers packed down the dirt, cleared massive boulders, and paved crucial sections with stone to prevent mud during heavy rains. They literally carved a flat path through the unforgiving Zagros mountains and the blistering heat of the plains. But a long dirt road alone doesn't make a communication network fast. It just makes it slightly less bumpy. The true genius of Darius wasn't just the road itself, but the highly systematic infrastructure he placed along it. He divided the entire route into precise intervals, calculating exactly how far a horse could run before getting exhausted. And at each of these intervals, he built a specialized relay station known as a Chapar Khaneh. There were exactly 111 of these post stations strategically dotted across the empire. This was the hardware of the ancient internet. Next, he needed the software, the riders. So, how did this ancient FedEx actually work? Imagine a royal messenger leaving the gates of Susa with a highly urgent message from the king. He jumps on his horse and gallops at absolute top speed. No resting, no sightseeing. After about 24 kilometers, the horse is predictably exhausted, panting heavily under the desert sun. In any normal empire, the messenger would have to stop, set up a camp, and sleep for the night. But on the royal road, just as the horse is about to collapse, a Chapar Khaneh appears on the horizon. The rider blasts into the station courtyard, kicking up a massive cloud of dust. Before he even hits the ground, a station worker is already standing there, holding the reins of a fresh, fully rested horse. The messenger grabs his scroll, leaps onto the new horse, and takes off again in mere seconds. Think of it like a giant relay race, but instead of passing a baton, they're passing a royal email. And the most incredible part? They didn't just do this during the day. When the sun went down and the desert turned pitch black, the riders kept going. They rode straight through the freezing nights with torches, trusting the perfectly paved road to guide them safely. If a rider got too tired to continue safely, another fresh rider at the station would take the message and ride in his place. The rider might stop, but the message itself never slept. It was in a state of constant, relentless motion toward its destination. The efficiency of this system was so mind-blowing that it completely shocked foreigners. Enter Herodotus, the famous ancient Greek historian. When he visited the Persian Empire, he could not believe his eyes. He watched these messengers fly across the landscape at breakneck speeds and decided to document their insane dedication. Herodotus wrote a phrase that became legendary: "There is nothing in the world that travels faster than these Persian couriers." He noted that absolutely nothing could stop them from completing their assigned stages. Neither snow, nor rain, nor heat, nor gloom of night stays these couriers from the swift completion of their appointed rounds. Let's visualize that. Imagine our stick-figure messenger pushing through a blinding blizzard in the freezing Zagros mountains, or slipping and sliding through torrential, muddy rainstorms without ever dropping the royal scroll. Does that quote sound familiar to you? It should. More than 2,000 years later, the United States Postal Service unofficially adopted this exact same phrase as their creed. Thanks to this unstoppable dedication, a message that used to take 90 days now arrived in just 7. King Darius could sit comfortably in his palace in Susa and know exactly what was happening at the very edge of his empire within a week. It was the ultimate tool for micromanagement. But the royal road was not just built for delivering pleasant letters and tax reports. It had a much darker, secret purpose. It was the absolute perfect highway for the king's ancient secret police. Welcome to the ancient world's most effective intelligence agency, officially known as the eyes and ears of the king. You see, the Achaemenid Empire was divided into 20 massive provinces, each ruled by a powerful governor called a satrap. These satraps had a lot of local power. They collected taxes, commanded armies, and sometimes got a little too ambitious. To ensure total loyalty, Darius deployed an army of undercover spies to constantly patrol the royal road. A seemingly normal merchant traveling on a donkey might actually be a royal inspector carrying a secret imperial seal. They would show up completely unannounced at a local governor's palace to perform a surprise audit of his tax records. If the satrap was caught hoarding gold or plotting treason, the spies used the road to send word back to Susa immediately. Within just a few weeks, the treacherous governor would find a highly trained Persian army knocking politely on his front door. But a surveillance network is only effective if the spies and messengers can travel without being robbed. And the ancient world was absolutely crawling with dangerous bandits hiding in the mountains, waiting to ambush travelers. So, Darius stationed heavily armed military garrisons at key strategic checkpoints, like the treacherous Cilician gates. If a bandit was foolish enough to attack a royal messenger, the punishment was incredibly swift and comically severe. Let's just say the Persians had a very creative way of using sharp wooden poles to discourage criminal behavior. Because of this absolute zero-tolerance policy, the royal road became the safest highway on the entire planet. It was famously said that a person could travel its entire length carrying a giant bag of gold without ever being touched. When you build the safest and fastest road in the world, something else happens, organically. Trade explodes. The royal road wasn't just a military and postal route. It became the ultimate ancient trade artery. Merchants from all corners of the world flocked to the highway, bringing exotic goods, spices, and silk. To make buying and selling easier across different cultures, Darius introduced a universal currency, the daric, a thick, high-purity gold coin featuring an image of the king holding a bow. Before the daric, A merchant from Egypt and a trader from India would have to awkwardly barter or weigh random chunks of silver. Now, they just counted the king's gold. It was the ancient equivalent of the US dollar. To accommodate these thousands of traveling merchants, the Persians built caravanserais along the route. Think of them as ancient roadside motels, complete with stables, hot meals, and a highly secure place to rest. A merchant could travel for months without ever having to sleep outside in the dangerous wilderness. Because of this incredible infrastructure, wealth began flowing toward the capital like a massive, unstoppable river. Susa and Persepolis grew into glittering megacities, heavily funded by the taxes collected along these trade routes. Darius didn't just connect an empire. He basically built the world's first truly globalized economy. If you bought a fancy Greek vase in the markets of Susa, it probably arrived via the royal road. The empire was rich, stable, and seemingly invincible. But no road lasts forever without attracting unwanted visitors. Fast forward about 200 years. The Achaemenid Empire is still incredibly rich, but a new, highly aggressive threat emerges from the west. Enter Alexander the Great, a young, insanely ambitious Macedonian king with a highly disciplined army and a desire to conquer the world. Alexander invades Persia. And when his scouts report back about the royal road, he doesn't just see a postal route. He sees the perfect, pre-paved red carpet leading straight to the heart of his greatest enemy. Ironically, the incredible infrastructure that kept the Persian Empire united was about to become the exact tool used to destroy it. Alexander's armies marched down the royal road at a terrifying pace. They didn't have to navigate confusing mountain passes or cross treacherous, unbridged rivers. King Darius had already done all the hard work for them. The Macedonian hoplites simply used the perfectly spaced Chapar Khaneh stations to rest, drink water, and resupply their own advancing troops. Thanks to this superhighway, Alexander was able to push deep into Persian territory and conquer the massive empire in record time. It was a bitter historical irony. The ultimate tool of Persian control became the exact instrument of their spectacular downfall. But even after the Achaemenid kings were defeated and their grand palaces were burned to the ground, the royal road didn't disappear. It was simply too valuable to destroy. Alexander used it to rule, and the empires that followed him did the exact same thing. The Romans, the Parthians, and later the Islamic caliphates all utilized and maintained sections of this incredible highway. Eventually, parts of the royal road merged seamlessly into the legendary Silk Road, connecting the east and the west for centuries to come. The original dirt may have washed away over the millennia, but the brilliant concept of a high-speed, organized communication network remained forever. Today, the physical stones of the royal road have mostly faded into the sands of time. We live in an era where we complain if a web page takes more than 3 seconds to load. We carry the entire sum of human knowledge right in our pockets. But next time you send an instant text message across the globe, take a brief moment to remember the ancient Persian messengers. Remember the men who rode through blinding sandstorms and freezing nights to deliver a single piece of parchment. King Darius I understood something that modern tech companies know today. True power doesn't just come from how big your army is or how much gold you have. It comes from how fast you can connect your people. That is the true immortal legacy of the Achaemenid Empire. Thank you for joining us on this journey along the ancient internet. If you enjoyed this video, do us a huge favor and smash that like button. Make sure to subscribe to Persia Decoded for more untold stories of the ancient world. What ancient Persian megastructure should we cover next? Let us know in the comments below. Until next time, keep exploring history.